Hello all, I'm currently in Qatar where the World Cup is being held. This tiny country has been subjected to a lot of media attacks, primarily from the West, for issues about LGBTQ rights, about women's rights, migrant labor treatment. But what if I told you that there's an issue that's the elephant in the room that has not been mentioned, almost intentionally ignored? What if I told you that this country that I'm in currently is the largest sponsor for terrorism in the entire world?
Qatar.
Qatar, unfortunately, has historically been a funder of terrorism.
Qatar is at the center of this. Qatar has now taken its place in the lead of countries that are supporting Al-Qaeda and Al-Qaeda-related groups.
This was not hidden. The Times and the Telegraph came out with articles saying Qatar funneled millions of dollars to Nusra Front terrorists in Syria, and Al-Qaeda terror financier worked for Qatari government. So this was a known fact, and you yourself can Google these articles right now. You can find them online. Yet somehow this aspect of criticism or scrutiny did not come up during the months leading to the World Cup. In fact, the matter made its way to U.S. Congress. So in a U.S. congressional hearing regarding the assessment of the Qatari-U.S. relationship, the former Congresswoman, Ileana Ross-Lehtinen, said the following: in Qatar, there are three buckets: terror financing by the government, terror financing done in Qatar through their own citizens that their government may not know about, and terror financing in Qatar that the government knows about but does nothing to stop. In that same hearing, Ross-Lehtinen mentioned a long-hidden fact of Qatari involvement in the 9/11 attacks. At least one high-ranking Qatari official provided support to the mastermind of the 9/11 terror attacks against our country, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. Then, of course, there is Khalifa Mohammed, who is a US, EU, and UN designated international terrorist for his role in financing Al-Qaeda and the 9/11 mastermind, she said. And this sponsorship was not restricted to Syria. Qatari funds made their way to the coffers of Hamas in Gaza Strip, to the Taliban in Afghanistan, and the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. Qatar was able to finance all these groups by a network of fake charities. So for charities like Madad Ahl Sham and Qatari Charity funneled millions of dollars through shoddy accounting and accounting loopholes in the country to these terrorist organizations. Now, LGBTQ issues, women's rights issues, and migrant labor issues, of course they matter. But when Qatar was scrutinized and investigated from a Western lens, it meant that Western interest and Western focus took precedent over any other issue that mattered surrounding Qatar. That meant that stories like ours, the people who lived through Qatar's funding of terrorism in Syria, people who lived through Qatar's terrorism funding in Libya, their stories did not get out because they got overshadowed. So, to conclude this video, I hope that when people think back to the World Cup 2022, they remember how Qatar mistreated its migrant laborers under the kafala system. They remember how Qatar has a long ways to go in its human rights record towards LGBTQ folks and women. But I hope that they also remember what Qatari funding did around the world. I hope that they remember how Qatari funding of terrorism destroyed communities like mine in Syria and many others around the world. Thank you for watching, and as a final note, congratulations, Argentina.